Hi, day two. A couple of things I'm thinking about it before we finish this little section. Um, I'm going to do a review sheet with you guys. I don't normally do this with this level, but given the circumstances, I think it makes sense. So expect to see that posted, I don't know, day or two. Secondly, you're going to have a quiz that I'll post on Wednesday. That will be pretty small. I like to keep these fairly small with these sections, especially given the virusy stuff and all that. So be ready for that. Okay. So what I want to do today is simply finish up kind of this section. This is kind of 2 days worth of notes at least, and this will be the last you hear from me this week unless something comes up. So we are on page 3 at the top where we're talking about supply. Okay, I'm going to do a quick little thing to show you supply graphs because we're going to use them here in a little bit to talk about when the stores open and so on and so forth. So if you look at supply, it's simply the same basic thing where we talked about with demand. You got two different definitions. You got supply and you got quantity supplied. Okay, so think about something like if you remember that sweater I put on, that green sweater right before break, I think I did this. Picture a guy wants to open a store selling that sweater. Okay, that's it. We'll make it real simple. One product. Okay, so he opens the store, and here's the store in front and back. You got your little storeroom or your warehouse. Okay, so I want you to think about supply as the warehouse, and think about quantity supplied as the store, as the shelves. Okay, so your definitions, first of all, I'll just read this to you. I'll read it a couple times. Supply is simply the amount of a good or a service a producer makes. Amount of a good or a service a producer makes. So it's just, if I've got enough material and enough sewing machines and enough workers to make 1,000 sweaters, then that's my supply. Okay, so just think of it that way. Quantity supplied is when he puts them on the shelf. So he takes 1,000 out, and he takes 1,000 in back, and he brings out 100 or 50 or whatever he puts on the shelf. Okay, so that's what he puts out for sale at any given time. You don't put your entire stock out, otherwise, why have a warehouse? So for the definition of QS, the amount of good or service a producer is willing and able to sell at a certain price. The amount of good or service a producer is willing and able to sell at a certain price. Okay, so those are your definitions. Let me know if you didn't get that. So then you look down below there, and there's a supply schedule, like we did with demand, with the numbers. Okay, and it simply is looking at prices and numbers supplied, so amounts on the shelf. So you see the first number at $6, he's going to put 2 out. At 14, he puts 11 out, and so on and so forth. So what you notice here, hopefully, is that as the price goes up, he actually puts more on the shelf. And the simple reason he wants to do this is because the more he sells, the more money he makes. So at the higher price, he wants to sell more. It doesn't mean he's going to, but it means it's what he wants to do. So he puts it out there. Okay? So here your numbers are directly related. It's supposed to inverse like it was with demand. So one goes up, the other goes up, the other one goes down, the other goes down. Okay? So I've drawn this on my beautiful graph here. If you want to draw this in that space below, you're just going to draw your thing with the price being the y-axis and Q being the x-axis. Sorry for the glare. And your graph, if you draw it, is going to be a 45-degree angle going out, away from the axis. Okay? So to show you this, as price goes up, here we are at 2, we go to 3, Q goes up, QS goes up, price goes up, Q goes up, price goes up, and so on and so forth. And you've got this stair-step thing. Okay? Questions on that? Because we're going to leave supply for a minute here. Okay. So we move on then to Roman numeral 3 where it says the first date. So here we've got putting supply and demand together, because what's the point of having a supply if there's nobody there to buy it? So what I'd like you to do under where it says surplus is simply draw another demand curve or another curve and put an S and a D. Just a typical, just make an X. Okay. S going this way, demand coming down this way. Okay. Now, how much do you charge for this sweater? Nobody knows. Petting my cat. How much to charge? So, you know, if you're gonna make a mistake, you'd rather make a mistake high than low. Agreed? You know, I don't know how this shirt, if I could get 50 for it, I'll charge 50. If I think I can get 30 for it, I still might try 50 just in case. Got a stupid people out there. So let's say, I'm going to just do this. I decide to sell this sweater for $50. So I'll put $50 on the graph. Okay. So to show you how this works, I'm going to try to hold this and do this. This is kind of difficult. Is I'm going to take 50 and pull all the way across to where the 50 touches the supply curve, that point right there. Okay. That, when I pull down, is my QS. Okay, so let's say it's 500 sweaters. Okay, so take it, go across to where it touches the supply line, pull down, and that Q right there, that's how many sweaters I put out. Now that's a lot of sweaters, but like I just told you, I put a lot out because I hope to sell them. It doesn't mean I think I'm going to, but I hope to. Because at $50, I'm making a good amount of profit. Okay? So I said at $50, open the store and hope for the best. So I open the doors. How many people are going to come to that store? A lot of people come to stores because they're new. But how many people are going to pay $50 for that sweater? Well, the way to measure that is simply take the same thing, do those dots, and when it crosses the demand curve, circle there or whatever you need to do. Pull that down. Let's say we'll just make it simple and say it's 100. That is your QD. That's how many people want it. So this right here, amount on the shelf. This right here, how many people want the sweater. Okay. So let's write this. 500 is the QS, 100 is the QD. And if you look at that gap between them, this is what we would call a surplus. I'm going to have to write this crooked. Okay, that is what a surplus looks like. This is QS, so QS is greater than QD. Okay, QS is greater than QD. Got it? And that just happens because, why do surpluses happen? Why don't people buy that sweater? Why don't people buy anything? It's either they don't like it, doesn't fit, it's too expensive, so on and so forth. Okay, so lots of things cause surpluses. I gotta let my cat out. Hang on. What you need, boo? You want out? Or do you want in here? There. Sorry, the boss was calling. Okay, so what happens next is that, is this satisfactory for the guy that owns the store? He's like, oh, I'm not selling very much. So what does he do? He lowers the price. So let's say he decides to lower the price down to $40. Okay, so there's 40. Okay, now two things happen. Number one, we pull across again to our supply line. That is what happens to QS. So a supply actually drops. Okay, so I'm fixing this. I'm going to put this on the side to fix a surplus. I'm going to lower the price. I'm going to lower the quantity supplied. Okay, so see that? So I'm going there to there, back toward 0. But when I do this and I pull across here, now all of a sudden I've increased my QD. Let's say that's 200. Okay, so I go from there to there. It's my new QD. So my QD goes up. Okay. Now, you've still got the gap, you see, but you've noticed it's gotten shorter. So if I lower the price again, it would go here and so on until we get down to there, which we'll talk about later. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and stop right there, and I think I'm going to post another one tomorrow for the weekend, and because it's getting a little convoluted, but I want to make sure you get some feedback on this because we're going to talk about shortages, and then we're going to talk about the middle, the equilibrium and all that. So let's go ahead and stop there. Have a great night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.